Okay, so I think it's safe to say that we all like reading quite a bit. It takes up a lot of our kind of waking hours, thinking hours. We love diving into books and kind of getting to know the characters, the world building, the maybe historical context. We love a good scare. Sometimes we love to imagine about other worlds. So, why does it feel sometimes like it's the hardest thing in the world to keep up a habit of reading? Well, I thought about this and I tried not to watch other videos when compiling this list, but these are 10 of my favorite tips for reading more in your daily life. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Nick here with Shelf-Esteem. I'm a composer and now also a booktuber. You can find my music in The Wheel of Time Season 2, his Dark Materials Season 3, and the official Brent Week's companion album for his series Lightbringer that came out last year. So, like I was saying, I really wanted to take some time to think a little bit about why we kind of struggle to maintain the habit of reading sometimes, why we go through reading slumps, and kind of how to bring more joy to the reading process. On Booktube, there's always a tendency to want to read more and more, and reading 10 books in a month starts to feel like not enough when you see another channel reading 15 or 20, and it starts to become kind of a race to the finish line. But, in doing so, we sometimes forget the joy of reading, and it's hard to sustain a habit of reading when you're putting those types of goals and pressure on yourself. So I wanted to think about ways of injecting more joy into reading and the reading process, and then also to be able to read more books, because we have endless TBRs, all of us do, and books that, we feel we're never going to finish this list, right? But we're going to have fun trying. And so these are the top 10 ways that I've kind of figured out in my own life that have helped me and hopefully will help you as well. So the first one is to find a quiet space for your reading and to read in that same space every time you sit down to read, if you can. So for example, I have a reading chair right here. It's right by my bookshelf, my Stephen King bookshelf right there. And I love sitting there and reading, and I find I'm able to concentrate the best there. When I go out into the living room, the cats are running around, or I want to watch a movie with my wife or something like that. And there's always distractions, right? So finding a place that really ends up being the same place to sit and read every time, your mind starts to associate that place with reading. So when you sit there, your mind starts to focus in a way that it's time to read. So that helps a lot with the focus and being able to read more as a result. I would also say, as a caveat to that, putting your phone on the other side of the room. It doesn't have to be in another room necessarily, but putting it on the other side of the room really helps a lot, because phones are so distracting and we're always seeing notifications and things like that, and it always kind of takes us out of the reading, and it takes us that much time to get back into the swing of reading again. So I would say that's a really good way to kind of develop a habit of reading and give your mind a consistency, so it starts to associate those positive feelings of reading to the place you're sitting and to having your phone away from yourself. So that really helps. That's the first kind of recommendation I would have. The second one is kind of almost counterintuitive, because you're thinking about reading more pages in a day, getting more into the stories. I would say for the first week or so to dedicate no more than 20 minutes to reading in a day. Turning on an alarm, and at the end of the 20 minutes, stopping reading. Forcing yourself to stop reading. What happens at that point is your mind feels like, oh, I wish I could read a little bit more. And as a result, your mind starts to associate positive feelings to reading, the process of reading, and you're always left wanting more. So at the end of that week, now you're sitting in your favorite chair or wherever, in a park or wherever you like to read, and you're reading for longer than 20 minutes, and you feel like a burst of relief. You feel like, oh, thank goodness I can read for a little bit longer than that allotted time. To that point, I would say definitely time yourself. If you're going to read for an hour or 2 hours or whatever it is, put a timer on, put your phone at the other end of the room. That really helps, because every time I do that, it's called time blocking, and it kind of forces your mind to go, okay, this is what I'm doing at this point. I'm not thinking about anything else. I'm diving in headfirst into the story. So that really helps, and that would be my number 2 pick for ways of reading more and enjoying more while doing it. The third way is, sometimes we read these dense fantasy books, or we read books about, hundreds of characters. It starts to get a little long in the tooth after a while, right? So one way that has helped me a lot and might help you is to vary the genres you read. If I read a big, dense fantasy book, I'm not going to read a fantasy book right after that. I'll pick up like a slow, I'll pick up a really fast-paced thriller or something like that, or a horror book, or I'll pick up some historical fiction that feels kind of like adjacent to fantasy, so I get that fantasy kick, but it feels very different because it's a historical fiction and is based in some reality. So that really helps a lot, and I've found that like when you vary the genres, again, your mind is left wanting more. If you really enjoyed the fantasy, then you're kind of left wanting more with the fantasy. And then you kind of, when you come back to fantasy, you're refreshed, you know? So your mind is always left wanting what it cannot have, right? The grass is always greener. You're always like reading something and side-eyeing your TBR and wanting to know what you're going to read next. And this kind of allows you to be able to do that in spades and keeps the joy of reading, you know, at the top of your mind. So that is my number 3. The fourth one is, I would say, read on multiple devices if you can. You know, if you listen to audiobooks and you love listening, then go with that. But then every once in a while, pick up a hardcover or a paperback. You know, read a few pages there, read a few chapters there. Then sometimes I'll go to my Kindle and I'll finish the book there. And it's all about what will kind of give you the path of least resistance. You know, when you're reading a big 1,000-page novel and you're going through the pages, after a while you start to go, oh man, I'm only on page 300. I want to read this other book too. And so, you know, just kindly giving yourself some grace and switching to the Kindle and not looking at the page count means you're just clicking and you're reading and you're getting into the story and you're forgetting about the time you're spending reading it. And that again keeps that path of least resistance to get through the story and to be able to enjoy it while you do it. So that would be my number 4. The fifth one kind of goes back to the first thing I was saying about the phones. I would say, if you can, don't read on your phone. There's 2 reasons for this. One, of course, the notifications. Even if you turn it off and you're able to kind of have some quiet space to read on your phone, the glare of the screen ends up really giving you eye fatigue after a while. And you just don't want to be looking at screens like that with the blue light, that the kind of backlit blue light that they have on common cell phones, smartphones. Ends up really doing a number on your eyes. So if you're going to read on a screen, definitely see about an e-reader. Those are lit differently, and so they don't give you the same eye strain from reading. So I would say that would be the 5th thing that I would mention as a way to kind of protect your eyes, protect your sanity, and to be able to read more. Number 6. I would say know what kind of reader you are. Do you like to read multiple books at the same time, or do you like to focus on one, do it fully, and then go to the next? If you do, then really pick a lane and go with that approach, and make that an approach part of your, you know, daily ritual for reading, because it really helps. If you know you're a multiple book reader, you know, sometimes I kind of vary. Sometimes I get into a book and I just want to see it through to the end. Then I don't look back. I don't think about anything else. I just see it through to the end. Sometimes I'm like, this is going to be a pretty chunky book. I want to have a couple others that I can kind of peruse through. So it's nice to be able to vary it up sometimes. So I fall in a little bit of both camps. What kind of reader are you? That would be a good thing to know and kind of start to identify for yourself. And as you read more, you'll kind of be able to figure out what kind of reader you are, and you'll be able to pick which one works best for you. And it's all about what works best for you. There are no right and wrong answers. There's only the answer that works best for you. And so keeping that in mind, that is my number 6. Number 7, this is kind of a fun one, and it's something I've really grown to love in the last year or so as I've been doing this more. And I would say join a buddy read if you can. There's a couple reasons for this. One, you know, we all love Booktube because we get to talk about the books that we love. We get to share that experience with other people. Sometimes we get to watch other people experience the books we love for the first time, so we get to re-experience it through their eyes, right? You get all that and more in a buddy read, but then also you really get to have kind of metrics like, hey, I need to read these chapters by the end of the week so we can talk about it, right? And that kind of forces your brain to focus on a task. You know, it's so funny because reading is something we love to do, but it requires focus. It requires attentions, and it requires some sort of a discipline. And so those things don't always go well with the mind. The mind gets easily distracted. You know, our brains are not designed to make us like work hard. They're designed to make us comfortable. And sometimes reading can be work, and that's the antithesis of feeling comfortable at times. So, you know, I would say buddy reads really help with that. It keeps the joy of it. You get to share it with someone else. And then you also, you know, you get a chance to read on a regular basis towards a specific goal. So that helps, and that would be my number 7. Pick a buddy read if you can. Find some fellow Booktube people in the community. You know, join a Discord or something like that, and try to find your people. You know, your tribe, your reading tribe. Number 8. So I would say, you know, there's some people who are mood-based readers. There's some people who live and die by their TBRs, and you know which kind of reader you are. Or as you read more, you'll kind of discover what kind of reader you are. I would say, two ways that have helped me is I tried different approaches. I would, at the beginning of each year, write all the books I want to read, divided by authors, by series, whatever, divide them into months and read that way. Then I kind of got more into mood reading, and I've finally settled on what works best for me is to have a book list for the year, and maybe at the beginning of the month pick what books I'm going to read that month. And maybe even give myself some grace that might shift as I find other books and things like that. And that really works well for me. And it's all about picking what works best for you. It could be one or the other, or a hybrid approach. So I would say number 8 is kind of figure out if you're a mood-based reader, a TBR-based reader, and kind of go with that direction and be flexible to allow yourself the grace to change as you evolve as a person and as a reader. Number 9, this is a very personal one for me, and I've found this to be really helpful. Find some good music to listen to. If you think about the shows that are adaptations of books that we've grown to love, music is such a huge part about it. And sometimes reading can be accentuated from listening to the right music. Some people love to have songs on. For me personally, it's distracting. I can't read when there's lyrics going on in the background. So I personally love ambient music in the style of what I'm trying to read. So for example, if I'm reading a fantasy novel, I'll find like an ambient fantasy playlist on Spotify. Or if I'm reading a sci-fi, I'll find an ambient sci-fi. Something that is very kind of like in the background, allows you to kind of get focused and reading. So, there's a lot of different playlists on YouTube, on Spotify, anywhere else you listen to music, and you can kind of find things that will keep you not distracted, but also allow you to kind of really focus on what you're reading. So I would say, give yourself some grace to kind of figure out which way works for you. So that is the 9th one. And before I mention the 10th one, if you like this kind of video, please like and subscribe and let me know what your reading tips are as well. Because, a lot of people who watch this channel look at the comment section and you guys all have a dialogue with each other. And I would love to learn from you as well. So let us know in the comments, what worked for you, what have helped you read the books that you've been able to read. I don't read 100 books a year, but these tips have helped me. If you read more or if you found other tips, please let us know as well. And we can all benefit, we can all share those together. So without further ado, the last one is allow yourself some reading slumps. I know that sounds crazy, but reading slumps happen to everybody. It happens to the biggest booktubers. It happens to the casual book reader. We love reading, but again, it requires work. It requires discipline. And when you're going from one book to the next, sometimes it does start to feel like it drags. Or if you're reading too much of an author or a genre or too long books, it starts to feel like a lot at a point. And I've found that fighting that feeling makes it worse often. If you try to counteract that by reading more, or like forcing yourself or disciplining yourself or punishing yourself by reading, then your brain starts to automatically associate a negative feeling towards reading. And that's no fun for anybody, and it just makes the problem much worse. So I found that being able to go, yeah, I am in a reading slump right now. That's totally fine. No problem. I'll take a day off, or I'll maybe do that tip that I'd mentioned, tip number 2, I think it was, where it's like, read only for 5 minutes. Don't allow yourself any more time. Put an alarm, 5 minutes. Leave yourself wanting more. Slowly rediscover reading again and the love of it. And a week or 2 from now, you'll be back to normal. You won't even be thinking about it. But if you make it into a bigger deal, you give it more power over your life, it will take over your life, right? Anything that could be said about anything in life, I guess. But the same is true for reading. So that's what I've found to be a really good antidote to reading slumps. Is to admit it to yourself. Don't resist it. Don't have to fight it. You can just kind of go with the current. You don't have to push against the current. Go with the current, and pretty soon it'll pass by like a storm. So those are my top 10 kind of reading tips for both bringing the joy into reading and also reading more books. So let me know in the comments. Please like and subscribe if you like this kind of content, and I'll have more videos coming for you. I'm on vacation right now on a cruise. You're probably watching this while I'm in Alaska right now, so I'm going to keep the content flowing for all of you, and I'll be jumping in the comments as I can. And I look forward to hearing from all of you. So with that, I'm Nikhil with Shelf-Esteem. Please be good to yourselves. Please be good to each other, and have a lovely day, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.